Today we will discuss what an extremist terrorist group is. We'll take a close look at the Ku Klux Klan, Al Qaeda, and ISIS in particular. First, in order to understand these groups, we have to understand the history of these groups, as well as their purposes of formation and what a terrorist organization or group is. Webster's dictionary defines a terrorist organization as the calculated use of violence or the threat of violence against civilians in order to attain goals that are political or religious or ideological in nature. This is done through intimidation or coercion or instilling fear. The Ku Klux Klan, or KKK is commonly referred to, which is what we will be referring to them throughout this discussion, are a far-right group that terrorized and targeted blacks, Jews, Roman Catholics, foreigners, and organized labor. The KKK was first formed in 1866 in Pulaski, Tennessee. Nathan Beckford was the first official grand wizard of the KKK. By 1870, they had branches in every southern state. The KKK Act of 1871 designated certain crimes as a federal offense. This gave the president authorization to arrest accused individuals without charge and send federal forces to suppress KKK activities and violence. This law also aided in the suppression of KKK terrorist activity, and by 1876 they had all but died out. In 1915, Protestants, which was the backing religious group of the KKK, organized a revival of the organization near Atlanta, Georgia. By the 1920s, their membership exceeded 4 million worldwide. By 1944, the terrorist organization was temporarily disbanded. In the 1950s, they gained traction yet again, carrying out some of the most violent acts in Southern history. In 1955, August 25th, the murder of Emmett Till, which he posthumously became an icon of the civil rights movement. Emmett Till was beaten, mutilated, lynched, and ultimately shot in the head. He was then tossed in the Tallahatchie River with a 70-pound fan tied to his body to weigh it down so it wouldn't be found. June 12th, 1963, Medgar Evers was assassinated by Byron De La Beckwith, a known member of the KKK. September 15, 1963, the 16th Street Church bombing in Alabama resulted in the death of 4 girls and injured 22 church members. This act of terror also catapulted the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The second terrorist organization we will cover is Al Qaeda. They hold firm to believe that the Jewish alliance is conspiring to destroy them. They also believe that the killing of non-combatants and internecine fighting of civil war. They were formed in 1988 by Osama bin Laden, Ayman al-Zawahiri, and 7 other jihad extremists. They are considered terrorist organizations by the USA, the United Nations Security Council, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO as commonly referred, along with several other organizations in multiple countries. Al Qaeda has been responsible for multiple attacks in the U.S. The most notable attacks are in 1998, August 7th, the U.S. Embassy bombing, 224 killed, over 4,000 injured. The 2002 Bali bombings, over 202 killed and 209 injured. And the most notable, recognizable, would be the bombings of September 11th in 2001. This was the worst terror attack on U.S. soil. Al Qaeda members hijacked 4 commercial airplanes and flew the planes into the Twin Towers, the World Trade Center, and the Pentagon. There were over 3,000 lives lost, with over 6,000 injured. On May 2, 2011, Al Qaeda took a major blow when Osama bin Laden was killed by U.S. Navy SEAL Team 6. This was a major victory in the war on terror. Unfortunately, the victory was short-lived. As they say, one evil dies, another rises. The dismantling of Al Qaeda led to the birth of a new terror group called ISIS. ISIS is the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, or ISIS, which is the most common reference to the group. The goal of ISIS is to create an Islamic state called the Caliphate, which is an Islamic state led by a caliph who is a political and religious leader who is the successor to the Prophet Muhammad. The caliph has absolute power and authority. ISIS followers believe in Sharia law, which is a combination of the Quran and the Hadith. Sharia law is archaic and discourages women to leave their home unless accompanied by their husband, father, or brother. ISIS has carried out 143 terror attacks in 29 countries and have killed over 2,000 people. How do we avoid terrorist organizations? What do we look for to keep ourselves safe from these types of organizations? There's no certain formula or criteria to follow to avoid terrorist organizations or a terroristic attack. Experts have, however, given us some guidelines that have been effective. Keep an eye out for people that are in odd places for extended periods of time. Be mindful of your surroundings, or look for people that are drawing replicas of an area or that frequent an area that may be taking pictures, or you see them drawing different things or just sitting there paying attention to people taking notes. Those are the things you want to look out for. This could be an attempt to remember what the area looks like if they're planning an attack, or it could be a way for them to actually plan their attack. You also want to be aware of people that are dressed out of season. You look for the guy in the heavy clothing when it's like 98 degrees outside. Or you want to be mindful of the guy who's shying away in the corners, those types of things. Or the guy who's always carrying like the heavy bag, and maybe he's not in business attire. We see people in business attire who normally have their bags, they carry the things. Guys, and these kind of things you want to look out for. So, in conclusion, we have determined that the commonality between all of these groups is their intense hate for others. That is usually rooted in some false sense of religion. We have also learned of the extremes that they are willing to go through to eliminate their targets. We have also covered what we can do to avoid these terrorist organizations. We must be ever vigilant and continuously aware of what is happening around us.